Good day, everyone. Today we will be having BSEE 25, Language Programs and Policies in Multilingual Society. We are now down to our lesson 4, Multilingualism in the Classroom. I am Ms. Buffalin D. Baes, your instructor for this subject. So, as an introduction, to make it clear, no, this presentation will just revolve around the multilingualism in the classroom, wherein that is the springboard of our lesson 5 after the midterm, which is the multilingualism in the Philippines because up to our lesson 4 lang po yung ating midterm. And then, to start with this lesson, I have here two different images of brain wherein the first one, it says here, it is the multilingual or the individual who has this brain is multilingual. And then the second one is just monolingual, wherein wala namang problem kung monolingual lang yung individual. But, uh, at some point, no, pag sinabi kasi natin na mas madaming kulot yung brain, no, so mas nagpa-function, so mas matalino daw yung individual. And in the case of being multilingual, yung frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe ng brain natin are working. So, meaning, mas madaming nagko-connectang neuron sa ating head, no, sa ating brain, unlike dun sa monolingual. Kasi hindi natin masyadong naiisip ba yung mga iba-iba pang language na kailangan or requirements dun sa pagiging multilingual. But rather, frontal lobe lang yung nagagamit natin. So, hindi masyadong gamit yung ating brain. Like what I've said nga, 'di ba, pag nga daw mas nagagamit yung brain, so mas matalino. And in being multilingual, ganun po yung nangyayari sa brain natin kasi iniisip natin yung different linguistic approaches na meron yung language na ginagamit natin, the way we converse or the way we communicate with others. So, yan po, no, nagiging ganyan yung brain natin. So, that is just a trivia for being multilingual. And also, it is into connection with the subtopic of this lesson, which is the mother tongue based multilingual education or the MTB-MLE. So, pagdating nyo sa curriculum na meron ang Department of Education and of course sa CHED, no, makikita nyo na lagi yung MTB-MLE kasi yun po yung meron tayo. And we are really strictly, no, complying with this one. Kasi nga po ay sa primary pa lang ay ginagamit na natin yung mother tongue based multilingual education. So sa primary, so meaning from kinder 1, 2 and 3. So yun po yung ginagamit natin, which is the mother tongue based education. So before we start into digging what is MTB-MLE, let me just unlock some terminologies na I maybe mentioned already from our previous lessons, 1, 2, 3, no? But in our case, from this lesson, I'll be unlocking those. First one is the mother tongue, one's native language, the language learned by children and passed from one generation to the next. So, yung mother tongue natin, ito yung na-acquire nung LAD natin or nung language acquisition device na meron tayo sa utak natin simula pagka silang sa atin. So, innate yung LAD na meron tayo. And then, since tabula rasa nga po, di ba, kung ano ba yung lengguwahe na nailagay or na-input dun sa mind natin, that will be our mother tongue. Kasi yun yung pinaka-basis ng pagsasalita natin, pakikipag-usap natin, pagsusulat, no, pagbabasa. So yun yung pinaka-basis. That's why mother tongue is very important. And multilingual education really embrace the mother tongue. Next one is the language. From our first lesson, I differentiated this to dialect. In this case, the meaning of language that we'll be embracing into multilingual education is that it is the expression of ideas by means of speech sounds combined into words. So later, I'll be also giving different definition into language But then, since yun nga yung focus ng multilingual, no, different languages na ginagamit. So, let me just also mention the L1 and L2. That means first language and second language that you will be encountering in this presentation. Next one, of course, is the multilingual, the use of two or more languages in continuation of bilingual, since two lang talaga yung sa bilingual, but in multilingual, two or more languages na po. And then lastly is the diversity. This is the inclusion of different types of people in a group. So into multilingual education, we'll be having, or this will include the culture, or the diversity of culture that we are having, most especially into our country, the Philippines, because we are very blessed with different kinds of dialect. Kaya po, yung diversity ay talagang gamit na gamit po dito sa ating bansa, or dun mismo sa curriculum na ginagamit natin na MTB-MLE sa ating edukasyon. No? Sa aspetong edukasyon ng Pilipinas, talagang diverse yung ating lengguwahe na ginagamit because of different culture that we are having. And then for this one, again, let me give you definition of what is language na magsa-sum up or i-wrap up niya kung ano ba yung pinapatungkulan nito, no, into our multilingual education. First one, this is a system of conventional, spoken, manual, or written symbols by means of which human beings, as members of a social group and participant in its culture, express themselves. So for example, no, yung sinasalita mo, yung sinusulat mo, kung ano yung ba yung ginagamit mo ng lengguwahe, yun din yung kinabibilangan mong social group and syempre kultura na ginagalawan mo. Kasi for example, ako, hindi naman ako Ilocano, hindi naman ako Pangasinense, hindi naman ako Waray, no. So how can I indulge myself into those kind of conventional spoken manual or written symbols kung hindi ko naman talaga yun yung pinanggalingan kong culture. So, likewise, no, dun sa talaga pinanggalingan nating mother tongue. So, yun yung ibig sabihin nito, no? So, mag-incorporate yung pagsusulat natin, pagsasalita natin, pagbabasa natin into what social group and culture yung kinabibilangan natin. Next definition is that language is the foundation of every culture. So dito, no, sa presentation ko, kung makikita nyo, building block siya. Yung language natin, yung parang building blocks ng kulturang pinanggagalingan natin. Kasi like, dun sa language na sinasabi natin, no, nagkakaroon tayo ng identity because of the language use na meron tayo. So, hindi tayo matatawag na Filipino kung ang ginagamit natin ay Nihongo, Hangul, or Mandarin. So, ibig sabihin, iba yung pinanggalingan natin. Iba yung kultura na meron tayo. At kung tayo ay nagsasalita ng Filipino, nagsasalita ng Tagalog, nagsasalita ng Cebuano, alam na natin kung ano yung pinanggalingan nating kultura. So, pinaka-basis siya, no? Yung pinaka-foundation na meron tayo, pinaka-pundasyon ng kultura na meron tayo. And then lastly, the third one, it is an abstract system of word, meaning, and symbols for all aspects of culture. So, for example, the way we use different language or different words, the way we use descriptions, illustrations. So, magbo-boil down siya lahat dun sa kulturang pinanggalingan natin. Like, for example, may mga bagay tayo dito sa bansa natin na hindi alam sa ibang bansa. And likewise, or vice versa yung ganon. Ibig sabihin, this is or language is the abstract system na magbo-boils down pa rin talaga sa pinanggalingan nating kultura. And like what I've said, these three definition of language or definitions of language incorporate culture. Again, language and culture, iisa lang siya, no? So, kung walang lengguwahe na ginagamit, hindi natin makikilala yung identidad ng kultura na meron tayo. Wherein, pinaka-basic requirement ng isang culture, yung language na ginagamit. So, tandem sila. Hindi pwedeng culture lang, walang language. Hindi pwedeng language lang, walang culture. So, ganun po yung pinapakita din ng multilingual education. So, culture and language is are very important into understanding MTB-MLE. Okay, next one. This one is according to Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Language does more than simply describe reality. So, hindi lang siya nagde-describe ng reality, but also it serves to shape the reality of a culture. Based to dun sa study na Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. So, ibig sabihin, pag sinerch nyo kasi yung Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, it has different researches and studies na nagbo-boil down din dun sa importance ng language into our culture. So, hindi natin ma-identify or wala tayong kultura literal if not because of language na ginagamit dun, nung specific group of people na meron tayo dun sa kulturang kinabibilangan natin. O yung nabanggit ko din kanina, yung social group na kinakabilangan natin. Once again, language can give us identity, language can give us culture. That is very important into MTB-MLE. Now, I have here UNESCO, or the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, that wherein yung Philippines is included, and then different countries then worldwide, no? Ano yung importance ng UNESCO dito sa ating MTB-MLE? It is because para ma-familiarize kayo na hindi lang nangyayari tong MTB-MLE sa Pilipinas, no? But rather, sa buong mundo. Kasi UNESCO na mismo yung nagbigay ng 3 important principles of education in multilingual world. So, ibig sabihin, sinusunod to hindi lang natin, hindi lang ng mga Pilipino, but rather other countries din, other cultures din na talagang nag-embrace dito sa principles ng UNESCO. Which is the first one, UNESCO supports mother tongue instruction as a means of improving educational quality by building upon the knowledge and experience of the learners and teachers. So for this one, naka-bold naman yung mother tongue instruction. So ibig sabihin dito, bilang teacher, no, since tayo kadalasan yung nagbibigay ng instruction, or tayo talaga yung nagbibigay ng instruction sa estudyante, yung gagamitin nating language must be the mother tongue, yung pinanggalingan na lengguwahe ng mga estudyante natin. Hindi pwedeng porket nagtuturo ka ng different language dun sa estudyante mo, ay ipapawalang bahala mo na yung pinaka-mother tongue nila. No, ibig sabihin, dun ka pa rin. Yung pundasyon na meron yung mga estudyante mo, yun din yung magiging pundasyon mo sa pagbibigay ng instruction sa mga estudyante. So, hindi pwedeng malaleft out yung mother tongue mo and malaleft out din yung mother tongue ng estudyante mo. So, ibig sabihin, ng UNESCO dito is talaga number 1, yung mother tongue. Kailangan natin tong gamitin, kailangan natin bigyan ng importance and hindi mawala yung pagiging essential niya, kagaya ng lugaw dito sa Pilipinas. Okay? So the next principle or the second principle is that UNESCO supports bilingual and or multilingual education at all levels of education as a means of promoting both social and gender equality and as key element on linguistically diverse society. So for this one, nakabold naman yung bilingual and or multilingual education kasi nga po, hindi lang siya sa elementary, but rather in even tertiary education, kailangan ginagamit natin ay bilingual or multilingual. Hindi pwedeng mag-stick lang tayo into single language. Kasi nga, sa bilingual pa lang, di ba, dun sa policy or law na meron tayo dito sa Pilipinas, kailangan bilingual agad, di ba? Pero, this time, pwede pa pala mas mag-broaden, no, yung ginagamit nating language. And sabi nga dito sa baba, 'di ba, linguistically diverse society. So, paano naman natin mapopromote yung both social and gender equality. So, ibig sabihin, 'pag English yung language na ginagamit mo, hindi ka na puwedeng mag-promote ng, gender and social equality gamit ang language natin na Filipino. So, hindi po yun gano'n. So, ibig sabihin, any language na ginagamit mo, kaya mong mag-promote ng social and gender equality, 'no? And coming from there 'no, magiging key element din siya into linguistically diverse society. 'Pag sinabi naman nating linguistically diverse societies, kahit, nagkakaroon tayo ng iba't ibang lengguwahe, may means pa rin of understanding each other kasi nga po, naka-embrace worldwide yung paggamit ng bilingual or multilingual education. So, hindi tayo ma-e-enclose into a single language, but rather napakalawak nung sakop kaya kahit iba-iba 'no, yung linguistic approach na meron tayo sa language natin, meron pa rin tayong keys or elements to understand each other kahit magkakaiba tayo ng lengguwahe because of this principle po ng UNESCO. Lastly, the third one is UNESCO supports language as the essential component of intercultural education in order to encourage understanding between different population groups and ensure respect to fundamental rights. So for this one naman, eto na yung sinasabi ko talaga na lalawak na no, yung kaalaman kasi intercultural education na yung sinasabi natin. So kung familiar kayo na may mga sa mga estudyante from other countries na dito nag-aaral sa Pilipinas tapos tayo 'no yung mga kababayan natin sa ibang bansa sila nag-aaral and they can cope up or they can catch yung meron sa bansa na pinupuntahan nila or yung mga foreign people na napunta din sa Pilipinas kaya nilang makipagsabayan, it is because of the intercultural education. And one more thing is that, familiar din ako sa CVSU na nag-exchange, tawag dito, nagsa-send sila ng practice teachers sa ibang bansa and then doon pa lang nagkakaroon na ng intercultural education. Kasi namumulat yung mga practice teachers na yon from CVSU dun sa kultura na meron yung ibang bansa na pinuntahan nila, 'di ba? So, dun palang makikita nila yung ways or yung pinaka mother tongue na tinatawag ng mga estudyante nila. Okay? Kasi siyempre 'pag magpa-practice teaching na kayo, hindi naman agad higher year yung hahawakan nyo. Kadalasan ay nasa lower year. Of course, makikita nyo or maririnig nyo na agad yung mother tongue na meron sila. Okay? So, yun naman yung ine-embrace nung third principle ng UNESCO, which is the intercultural education. Next one is that, yan, para malaman nyo, no, yung pinaka-basis natin ng MTB-MLE ay malawak, no, kaya kasama po talaga yung three principles ng UNESCO. This one naman, no, MLE refers to the first language first education, that is schooling begins in the mother tongue and transitions to additional languages. It starts from where the learners are and from what they already know. Okay, ayan. Simpleng illustration or description sa multilingual education, yung first language first. Hindi pwedeng mawawala yung pinaka mother tongue. Kahit multilingual na yung isang individual, ang basis pa rin talaga ay yung mother tongue. Kaya siya naging MTB-MLE. Okay, hindi lang siya multilingual education dito sa atin, but rather mother tongue based multilingual education siya. Okay po? So, what is the purpose of MTB-MLE? Siyempre, hindi naman to inimbento, hindi naman to umiikot ngayon or umiiral ngayon sa iba't ibang bansa, no, kung wala siyang purpose. It is because to develop appropriate cognitive and reasoning skills, enabling children to operate equally in different languages, starting in mother tongue with transition to Filipino, and then English to preserve the Philippine cultural treasure as well. So, dito, isang ano lang siya, isang statement lang siya, pero ang daming ita-target. The first one is yung pagkakaroon natin ng appropriate cognitive and reasoning skills. So, it all deals with the way we think, yung mental process na meron tayo or mental improvement na ibibigay sa atin ng MTB-MLE. So, hindi lang tayo mag-stick dun sa frontal lobe na nagana sa utak natin, but rather, yung four lobes na meron tayo, yung frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital lobes natin sa brain natin ay magagamit natin. That's why mas magiging deep yung understanding natin into different things just by having MTB-MLE. Okay? And also, it will operate equally in different languages. To operate equally in different languages. Kasi nga, uh, once na naging multilingual ka na, hindi ka basta magiging naka-focus na lang sa isang language or sa dalawang language, but rather kaya mo na sila, no? Kaya na nilang mag-collab sa utak mo yung different languages na alam mo. Okay? And lastly, to preserve the Philippine cultural treasure as well, which is our language, which is our culture itself. Okay? So, hindi natin neglect hindi natin babaon na lang sa limot kung ano ba yung meron tayo dito sa ating sariling bansa. And that is very important. Next one, what are the languages or dialects considered by DepEd in its MTB-MLE implementation? So, sa CHED kasi siya, so diverse na talaga siya. Pero yung pinaka-focus nito, yung ibinigay dito ay yung sa DepEd talaga. We do have 12 dialects or languages, the Iloco, the Pangasinan, the Kapampangan, the Tagalog, Bicol, Waray, Hiligaynon, Cebuano, Meranao, Chavacano, Maguindanaon, and Tausug. So, ito yung nakonsidera ng DepEd na part ng implementation of MTB-MLE. I'm really sorry because I'm sticking into Tagalog, no? And I do consider myself still pa rin na bilingual kasi nga ay tubong Cavite talaga ako. We do not have province, no? Kaya yung pinaka language ko is Filipino and English lang talaga. Wala akong ibang alam na dialect or hindi ako confident na gamitin yung ibang dialect na alam ko, no, na dito sa ating bansa. Kasi yun, na-encounter ko sila or natutunan ko lang din sila because of the friends or fellow faculty, no, na nakakilala ko, and then they do know different dialects or they are from different provinces of Philippines, and then yun, may mga words lang din ako natutunan. But again, I'm not yet confident by those dialects, no? So, Filipino and English lang po talaga ako. And then, why is it important to teach mother tongue as a subject in school? Actually, sabi ko nga sa inyo, di ba, primary level, focus yan sa mother tongue. Bakit nila pinag-aaralan yung Filipino? Bakit kasama sa subject yung Tagalog, di ba? It is because it provides learner with a strong educational foundation in the first language in terms of instruction. Again, hindi sila matututo ng L2 kung hindi sila comfortable sa L1 nila. Okay? Next one, it is a stepping stone in achieving the aims of education as well as the goal of functional literacy. Okay po, hindi tayo magiging literate na legit, no? Kung hindi natin to na pagtuunan ng pansin. Kung hindi tayo natutong magbasa, magsulat, no, nung lengguwahe na meron tayo sa Pilipinas, which is Filipino and English. Hindi tayo matatawag na literate kung hindi natin alam itong mga basic na to, no. So, stepping stone siya. And then lastly, once again, it preserves our country's cultural treasure, yung language and culture na meron tayo. Next one is, what are the advantages of having MTB-MLE? So once again, we are understanding what is multilingualism in the classroom na ma-encounter nyo, no, lalong-lalo na in the near future pag nagtuturo na kayo. So first one, it reduce dropout. Secondly, reduce repetition. And lastly is the parents and community is involved. So isa-isahin natin to. Reduce yung dropout. So hindi madami yung nagda-dropout na estudyante kasi ginagamit natin yung mother tongue sa instruction or sa pagtuturo natin. Nakakapag-adjust agad yung mga estudyante. Hindi sila nabibigla na, uy, English agad yung kailangan. Okay, no? So, same way with the reduced repetition, yung mga naulit ng grade 1, naulit ng grade 2 or 3. So, nababawasan siya because of the mother tongue-based multilingual education. Kasi mas comfortable silang gamitin yung mother tongue nila. And yun yung ginagamit natin sa kanila, sa mga estudyante. Kaya nababawasan yung dropout and umuulit po ng grade level. Lastly is the parents and community is involved. Kasi nga po, syempre yung parents, since sila yung first teacher ng mga bata o ng mga estudyante natin, mother tongue yung ginagamit nila sa pagtuturo sa estudyante. Tawag dito, bonus na lang or additional points na lang, no, kung talagang natuturuan ng maayos na English yung mga estudyante or yung mga bata. Nakakalungkot lang din, no, ibabalik ko lang din yung before na na-mention ko na, no, na most of our toddlers nowadays, no, mas comfortable sila sa paggamit ng English kasi because of the different gadgets na binibigay natin to facify them, no. And yun, kagaya nga ng sinasabi ko, mother tongue based tayo, which is Filipino. Hindi naman sinasabi na kailangan agad marunong ng English. So, basic talaga. So, may mga estudyante din ako nakikita, nagba-back to basic sila. Imbes na English yung tinuturo talaga ng teacher, baliktad, Filipino yung tinuturo ng teacher para matuto sila sa mother tongue nila. Okay? So, what are the typical MLE or multilingual education programs? I do have here two programs, the strong foundation and the strong bridge. So dito medyo metaphorical siya. So first one, yung strong foundation, pag sinabi natin yung pinakapundasyon, yun nga 'di ba sabi ko kanina, building blocks. According to Thomas and Collier 1997, research shows that children whose early education is in the language of their home tend to do better in the latter years of their education kasi nga kumbaga firm na yung foundation na meron sila o yun nga tinatawag na strong na yung foundation nila sa pakikipag-communicate, sa pakikipag interact into different people kasi nga maayos yung pundasyon na pinanggalingan ng language na meron sila. Okay? So, hindi na sila bali-baligtad kagaya nung nabanggit ko ng mga bata na mas natuto pang mag-British accent English, no? Kesa dun sa talagang legit language na meron tayo sa ating bansa. Next one, it is the strong bridge. Pag sinabi nating bridge, 'di ba parang nadadala tayo from one place to another nung bridge na 'yon or nakakatulong siya para maging guide sa atin. So, ganun din po yung ginagawa ng multilingual education, which is an essential difference between MLE programs and rural mother tongue education programs is the inclusion of a guided transition from learning through the mother tongue to learning through another tongue. So, ito yung sinasabi ko sa inyo. Step by step yung ginagawa or yun nga, may tulay na ginagawa yung ating MTB-MLE para mas matutunan ng estudyante natin simula sarili nilang lengguwahe hanggang dun sa kailangan nilang matutunan na lengguwahe. So, nagiging tulay po yung MTB-MLE sa atin and nagiging strong din na pundasyon yung MTB-MLE na meron tayo sa ating curriculum. Okay po. Next one, ito po yung stages ng MLE program natin. We do have 4 stages. Ayan po, the stage 1 is learning takes place entirely in the child's home language. Again, important po ito para sa mga toddlers natin kasi sa bahay sila na unang natututo ng lengguwahe na kailangan nila. Stage 2 is that building fluency in the mother tongue. And introduction na po ito ng oral language 2 or L2. Dito, no, yung sa stage 2, since na tutunan nila sa stage 1 yung pinaka-Filipino, halimbawa, Filipino language, dito sa ating stage 2, ayan, fluent na sila, makakapagsalita na sila, or may comprehension na din sila. Pag gano'n na yung level nila, pwede na nating introduce yung L2 orally. Okay, so paano po ba yon? Yung, ito kasi yung sa stage 1 sa bahay yan. So, mga ages 1 to 3 or 1 to 5, gano'n. Tapos 5 to 6, tong stage 2, no, building fluency. Tsaka matututo na sila ng konting English, then makakapagsalita na sila ng konting English din. So yung next stage, pataas din po ng pataas yung age dito, no? Makikita na natin to siguro sa grades 1 and 2 natin. Hanggang 3, yung stage 3 na to, no? Building oral fluency in L2 and then introduction of literacy in L2. Dito sa stage 3, marunong na silang makapagsalita, no, ng English, tapos mako-comprehend na rin nila, no, introduction na rin ng comprehension and understanding sa English. Okay? And then, of course, yung last stage, magagamit na yung L1 and L2 for lifelong learning. And then, once again, multilingual nga po tayo. It can be up to L3, L4, L5. Okay? So, that is the kagandahan, no, ng multilingual education na meron tayo, or the MTB-MLE. And this one, with the connection of having strong bridge, MLE proponents stress that L2 acquisition component is seen as a two-way bridge, such as that learners gain the ability to move back and forth between their mother tongue and the other tongues, rather than simply a transitional literacy program where reading through the mother tongue is abandoned at some stage in education. So dito naman, no, yung syempre yung mga proponents natin, yung mga nakapag-isip din talaga ng important talaga ang MTB-MLE, hindi lang siya one way, since natuto ka na, no, from mother tongue to L2 mo, no, hindi ka na makakabalik sa L1 or dun sa mother tongue mo. So pwede pa rin siya, and mas maganda siya, mas maganda tignan na two-way bridge yung nangyayari, since nakatawid ka na sa kabila, no, ng language mo, pero pwede ka pa rin makabalik. Okay? So, yung understanding mo and yung cognition na meron ka being multilingual ay talagang gamit na gamit, no? Yung kung ano ba yung meron sa brain mo. Kung ano ba yung wino-work out, no, ng pagiging multilingual mo into your mental process. And important yon, no? Huwag niyong kakalimutan, two-way bridge talaga dapat siya. From L1 to L2 and then L2 to L1 or L3, 4, 5, makakabalik pa rin, no, into L1. So, ganun yung tinatawag natin na two-way bridge. Next one, the most important, or this is the last part of this multilingualism in the classroom. Syempre, makikita na natin ngayon yung important features ng MTB-MLE, since nagkaroon na kayo ng understanding what is MTB-MLE, na makikita natin, no, tawag dito, magiging present na dun sa ating mga estudyante if we are going to indulge them into MTB-MLE. First one, education begins with what the learners already know, building on the language and culture, language and experience that they bring with them when they start school. So, ayan no po, first language first po papasok yung important na feature ng MTB-MLE na number 1 natin. First language first. So, nabibigyang importansya, no, magiging two-way bridge siya because of MTB-MLE. Okay po, no? And then next one, learners gradually gain confidence. Very important to, no? Gain confidence in using the new or official language before it becomes the only language for teaching academic subjects. So, from Filipino, natuto kayo mag-English or natutong mag-English yung estudyante mo, no, magiging confident na siya to use it. Lalong-lalo na, for example, nag-college na sila, what if ilang subjects na lang yung gagamit ng Filipino language, and then most of the other subjects ay English na yung gamit na language, and then magiging confident na yung estudyante natin. Kumbaga, magiging good product na siya ng MTB-MLE kasi natutunan na niya yung L1 to L2. And then, once again, sabi nga sa number 1, makakabalik pa rin sa L1 from L2. Okay po? And then lastly is that learners achieve grade level competence in each subject because teachers use their own language along with the official school language to help them understand the academic concept. So, kagaya din nung nabanggit ko na rin dun sa ating other previous lessons, no, hindi kagaya dito sa Luzon, no, or kung familiar tayo dito sa ating lugar, or for example, Calabarzon, ang ginagamit muna, syempre, is Filipino, tapos tuturuan mag-English. Some other parts of the Philippines from Visayas and Mindanao, they're still using their dialect o yung pinaka-mother tongue nila is, for example, yun nga, yung Ilocano, Cebuano, Chavacano, yun yung pinaka-mother tongue nila. Tapos, nagkakaroon sila ng bridge papuntang Filipino. Tapos, saka pa English. So, dito papasok yung number 3. Kasi yung pinaka-language na meron talaga dun sa kulturang pinagmumula nila o kinakasakupan nilang kultura ay nagagamit pa din. Ano po, hanggang sa matutunan nilang mag-English. Actually nga, I don't know if it is based on research, pero base dun sa mga naririnig ko and then na-encounter ko, no, halimbawa, Ilocano talaga sila, o Bisaya talaga sila, mas comfortable sila to use English as their second language than Filipino. Okay? Nage-gets niyo yung point do'n kasi, mas nabibigyang tuunan nila yung second language na English kaysa dun sa Filipino. Kasi yung Filipino, in the long run, matututunan nila yon kasi nasa Pilipinas naman sila. Kaya ngayon, nagkakaroon sila ng focus into learning English. They can understand Filipino, they can use fluently and understand properly yung pinaka-dialect na pinagmula nila or yung Visaya na alam nila, pero mas confident sila to use English as their second language. Yun naman yung nakakatawa doon, no? Na parang ang daming nata-target na bird just by having one stone. Okay? So, ganun naman yung kagandahan ng MTB-MLE into your classroom. So, in our next lesson, we will be having naman the multilingualism in the Philippines. So, again, we will be targeting laws na nag-incorporate ng multilingualism sa bansa natin. But please do understand what it is or what is multilingualism in your classroom or in the classroom kasi ito na yung ma-encounter nyo in the near future pag kayo ay teachers na. Okay? For this lesson, thank you for listening. Once again, I am Miss Daphne Baes, and take care. Wait for your activity for this lesson.